The golden afternoon bathed the vast grassland in warm light as a wild buffalo, separated from its herd, wandered nervously through the tall grass. From every direction, a pride of lions crept closer, silent and calculating. The buffalo's instincts flared when it realized it was surrounded. It turned, searching for an escape, but it was already too late. A powerful male lion launched the first strike, leaping onto the buffalo's back, followed by the lionesses who lunged at its neck and legs, quickly bringing the struggling animal down. In a whirlwind of dust and growls, the buffalo collapsed, overwhelmed by the coordinated assault. As the pride began their gruesome feast, their primal instincts on full display, the scene turned even more savage. The sound of flesh being torn and low growls filled the air, echoing the harshness of life in the wild. Amid the chaos, a young female lion tried to claim her share of the meal, but was shoved aside by the older lionesses. When she attempted to squeeze in again, she was met with brutal force. The adult females pounced on her, clawing at her legs and flanks in a violent show of dominance. She struggled desperately, but the deep wounds soon sapped her strength, and she fell motionless to the ground. Ignored by the others, the injured lioness lay gasping for breath as the pride devoured the remains of the buffalo. When nothing but a skeleton remained, the lions moved on, leaving behind the broken body of the young female. As twilight settled, a large male lion, her mate, returned, scanning the area until he spotted her. He approached slowly, gently nudging her with his nose and licking the blood from her wounds. He did not leave her side, even as darkness fell over the savanna. All night he stood vigil next to her, his eyes glowing with worry and protectiveness. When dawn broke, they had not moved far from the carcass. The lioness remained unable to stand, groaning softly every time she shifted. The male occasionally wandered over to the remains of the buffalo, eating a few bites before returning to her side, never straying far. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed across the plain. A green pickup truck appeared, bouncing along the rough terrain. From it stepped a black man in a ranger uniform, bearing the badge of Masai Mara. It was veteran ranger Benjamin Okoth. He had long watched over the lions of this region and knew their behaviors well. He approached slowly, careful not to startle the animals. The male lion growled in warning but did not attack, recognizing the familiar figure. Benjamin sat a few steps away from the injured lioness, observing her shallow breaths and bloodied limbs. Assessing the severity of her injuries, he made a critical decision. He would take her back for treatment. Benjamin worked methodically, wrapping the lioness in a thick cloth like a stretcher. The male lion growled in protest, but remained still as the ranger lifted the heavy lioness onto his shoulders. Carefully, he carried her to the truck, laying her gently on the bed and propping her head up with his jacket. Surprisingly, the male lion leaped into the truck bed as well, curling up beside his mate, his watchful eyes never leaving her face. Benjamin started the engine and drove away from the haunting scene, glancing in the rearview mirror where the two lions lay side by side. Upon reaching the ranger station, Benjamin called ahead to alert the medical team. Other rangers awaited with stretchers and medical supplies. The male lion followed closely, refusing to be separated from his mate. Inside the bright medical room, veterinarians immediately began treatment. They disinfected her wounds, administered painkillers, monitored her vitals, and began fluid and blood transfusions. Meanwhile, the male lion paced just outside the room, occasionally growling or letting out a soft whimper, as though pleading for reassurance. After 2 tense hours, the head veterinarian emerged with a relieved expression. The lioness had survived. Her injuries were serious, but not fatal, mostly soft tissue damage and severe exhaustion. They moved her to a quiet recovery enclosure filled with clean grass and shaded from the sun. The male lion was allowed inside, where he settled next to her, nuzzling her gently. Days passed. The rangers brought fresh food and water, speaking in hushed tones as they cared for the recovering lioness. Slowly, she opened her eyes more often, began to eat, and even attempted to stand, her movements cautious, but determined. Benjamin visited daily, speaking softly to the veterinarians and gently stroking the lioness's head whenever she was alert. The growing affection between the two lions touched everyone at the station. Her golden fur began to grow back, and her wounds gradually closed. After a week, she stood and took her first steps with her mate, watching closely. The veterinarians confirmed she was ready to return to the wild. A special truck was prepared with soft bedding. As they traveled back to the savannah, the male lion rubbed his head affectionately against his mate, visibly elated. When the truck doors opened, the two lions stepped out and looked around at the familiar land. They didn't rush, but walked slowly into the tall grass, side by side. Benjamin stood silently, watching them disappear into the wind-swept plain. As they turned one last time to look back at him, he felt his throat tighten with emotion. It was a farewell without words, yet filled with profound meaning. The plains of Masai Mara had welcomed them home, survivors of a brutal ordeal, symbols of strength and love. Benjamin often revisits that spot during his patrols. Though the lioness's scars may remain, her spirit has healed. What touched him most wasn't just the survival, it was the love between the lions, raw and unwavering, as sacred as anything he'd ever witnessed. In the eyes of that male lion, full of fierce devotion and hope, Benjamin saw a reflection of something deeply human. Thank you for taking the time to follow this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to support us.